My name is Lori Saltzman. I'm a co-founder of Open Floor, and I teach movement and meditation.
Hi, my name's Kathy Altman, and I also am a co-founder of Open Floor Movement Practice, and I've been teaching for decades. It's an amalgam of all the universal principles of conscious movement, from Aikido to yoga. Every conscious movement practice, all the martial arts, all the art forms teach about breath, teach about grounding and centering, teach about levity and gravity. There's basic movement, universal principles. We basically were the synthesizers and put them together and said, here's a curriculum. In addition to all the physical principles, we worked with relational principles. So the relationship to ourselves. This is not new. Every basic conscious practice talks about the ability to have a relationship with yourself, or with another, or with a group, or with something bigger that's above and beyond us.
It's really about using dance and movement and meditation and all the things, and writing and visual art, to help people live an embodied life. Embodiment is kind of the new buzzword now, but for years, nobody even knew what that was. And the simplest way I could put it is to live fully at your own address. Right? So many of us spend our lives really, head over here, body, heart over here, blood, sweat, tears over here, and that we are not fully integrated. And that open floor movement practice brings that together. It brings us back into our body to learn about our emotions, our physicality, to learn about being part of a group or a community, to learn about spirit, whatever you happen to name it or believe it as. It's a way to do it through and with the body, so everything is integrated from top to bottom. We do dance, and to me, dance is music or no music, and moving your body in a creative, energizing, fun, touching manner with other people most of the time. In terms of the conscious dance, I think it's a decent overview because it speaks to, I find myself saying either art in motion or movement meditation. It feels closer to what I do than conscious dance. But when we do sitting meditation, we are sitting still and we are lowering or closing our eyes so that we can be present and available to notice what it is we do, to notice our patterns, to notice what we do in our minds, to notice sensations in the body, to notice emotions that come up. And we do that in stillness. What I love about moving meditation is we do it through movement. I've always been calling it's meditation on wheels, so that we take it from a cushion meditation to a meditating in interaction, to a mindfulness when we're moving with someone, or when we're being by ourselves and dancing, or when we're exploring different artistic forms inside of the dance. So it's closer to life for me. It's closer to, can I have that consciousness while I'm doing what I do in the rest of my life? Because we always say that what we do on the open floor is only as much of value as you can take it off the dance floor. If you just come to dance and sweat and have a good time, that's great. That's great. But in terms of waking up, in terms of being mindful, in terms of seeing the patterns that keep us suffering for most of our life, we all have them. If it doesn't translate to what I'm going to do when I walk out the door, or my relationship with my son, or my own relationship with myself, my self-consciousness, or my this or my that, then it's just a dance. And so we use dance to learn. We use dance to learn and to wake ourselves up in a meaningful and continuous way.
I had a man from Pakistan that came to a workshop of mine in Austria. It was his first time dancing. And he said, "Thank God you used the word movement and not dance." He said, "I don't dance, and I'm never going to dance. In my culture, that is not something that you do." So I feel like those words can be interchangeable in a certain way when you're looking culturally at what is going to attract somebody. Is dance because they feel like, oh, yippee, dance, that's fun, that's enlivening, that's engaging. Then you use that word. If people get intimidated by that word, which many people do, even trained dancers get intimidated by the word dance. Well, I only dance ballet, or I only dance swing dance. I don't know how to dance when somebody isn't giving me the steps outside of myself. Then you use a different word. So I think that there's some cultural implications in those two. I also think that dance is an art form. People study dance for years to become dancers. And there's a way in which we have changed the definition of what dance is. Dance as personal process, dance as a relational skill, dance as a way to meet something that is above and beyond us, but also inside of us. Dance where we feel a sense of unity with people. That can happen in professional dance, that can happen when we use it as an art form. It does happen. But to have a non-trained dancer feel those things, that is a radical concept. And so I am not so particular about which word I use. I just know what my purpose is in terms of using those words. The opposite of conscious is unconscious. So if we're really going to use the word conscious, then what are we conscious of? What are we aware of? And actually, can we not only sense it, but can we name it, which gives us enormous power? And then can we allow our body to reflect it and respond to it in a conscious way? So let's take emotions, for example. There's no such thing as dancing without emotions. There's no way that you can sever or amputate your emotional terrain when you dance. They're alive and well, just as if you were lifting your leg or flinging your arm. Can you actually embody what emotions are moving through you at any given time without them being called for from the outside, but actually being called for from the inside? And so consciously embodying our emotions is conscious dance. Consciously embodying our thoughts. We have thousands of thoughts a day. I've heard one thing where it said, but basically we only have 16 and they just repeat themselves. They're on repeat. But those 16 or those 1,000, whatever you want to say, are important, especially given if we're going to look at the word consciousness, what are the patterns of thought that repeat themselves over and over and over again and basically have us in their grip as opposed to we having a grip on our thoughts? And so there's all kinds of ways you could look at what is conscious dance. It's bringing awareness, bringing consciousness to what is moving in, through, around us. I actually like the term. I think it works for me.
For me, it's the kind of dance that we're using to learn, that it's a learning process as much as it is a physical, lovely, fun process. That there's always the underlay of some learning. And to be conscious, for me, conscious dance is to be conscious of the things in my mind or in my heart or in my habits or in my old wounded patterns that I can't even see anymore because they're so baked in to Lori. To become conscious of the things that get in the way of love and contentment and peace, and even being conscious and at peace with when I'm not at peace, but I'm aware of it. It's not working me from a place of oblivious or shutting it down or moving away from a part of myself, that everything is included. And by including and welcoming everything on our dance floors, that includes your sorrows, that includes your fired up and you want to like touch the ceiling with every footstep. Everything is included. There's no part of ourselves we have to cut off, as opposed to if I was going to a professional dance class and I had just had a near car accident. So my whole system was shaking. I'd have to kind of button up and get in line, as opposed to I'm going to come in there and move that energy of terror and trauma and until it moves through me. So it invites everything. That's how I see conscious dance.
I think that's why people are moving now towards the notion of embodiment as opposed to conscious dance, because we're not always conscious. Let's be real. There's so much that we're not conscious of. Like you just said, our patterns, our behaviors, our habits. But when you are guided by somebody or facilitated by somebody, and you are bringing awareness to what is moving through you, that's the practice of embodiment. You might not be conscious of everything, but to be able to be aware of, name, and allow it through the system, it's like we're like speakers. You know, you put on, there's music in there, and you play the music, and then you embody, the speaker embodies the music. So I think that it's a slightly more accurate term than conscious dance. You want to start? You want me to start? You want to start?
Sure, go ahead. You start.
Oh. I'll start. I have taken many forms of dance. I was never a professional dancer, but I studied since the age of 5, all different forms. Ballet for many years, modern dance for many years, gymnastics, Caribbean, African, all kinds of dance. And so when I met Gabrielle, that was a turning point for me from outside choreography to internal choreography. It really was a life-changing experience, and I bow to her every day for that lens on my life. And that being said, my formal training was such an aid to me. I had a certain kind of body intelligence. I had a certain kind of balance. I knew where bottom was. I knew where top was. And that's hard for people sometimes to even know how to ground and lift at the same time. But in trained dancers, that's a no-brainer. So my background was very useful to me. And it led me to a doorway that was beyond that, way beyond that.
I feel like I represent the other 90% of the world.
You do.
People who don't have a dance background, and you call something dance and they automatically say that's not for me. I have a background of being embodied because I've always been very athletic. I've always had a very coordinated body. I lived in my body really well and happily and joyously, but would never have called myself a dancer, except for, party dancer. So I feel like, in a way, when I'm teaching, it makes it easier for people who are frightened or don't feel like they have the moves, as opposed to teachers who are so clearly studied dancers and their bodies have that kind of intelligence. I just don't dance that way. I dance like a regular person who has done this for a really long time and am at ease with letting myself go in a setting like this. And I think that's what I provide for people, that I'm not scary. I'm not good enough to be scary.
What I love about studying with different teachers, and I really believe, study with as many teachers as possible. Don't get stuck with one teacher until, that's the right thing to do. But be non-monogamous in a certain way with teachers. You're going to learn so much. It will influence you in such good ways, especially if you don't like them. So every teacher that I have worked with, whether it's my colleagues, Vin Marti, or Yakov and Susanna Darling-Kahn, or Andrea, or I have many different colleagues and teachers. Every one of them has a particular flavor, and it's beautiful and rich, and they've really embodied their own interests and their own expertise and their own flavor of, like Lori said, with the writing, this is what I love to do, so I'm going to go ahead and offer it. For me, I think that one of the most important things that conscious dance, embodied movement practice provides for people is community. And I think we are sorely not only in need of it, but I think people are hungry for a sense of community, a sense of place in this very wide world, in many ways a very fractured world, and to have common ground where week after week you come and you see by and large the same people with some newbies thrown in. You get to, instead of break bread at a table, you get to kind of dance and break bread on the dance floor. You get to have some interaction that has some meaning to it. It builds incredible sense of belonging in community. And I think that we are thirsty for it. I think this world needs it. And I think that it is a unique way, just like church is a unique way to find community. And there's many ways, service work, sanghas, dance is one of them. And they're all over the world. What's so beautiful is that people who live in Berlin can come and dance in the community in Marin County. People who are traveling in this world can go anywhere and find a dance floor and find commonality. Again, that cultural piece, it's so important that we dance within our cultures, but beyond our cultures. So I think we serve a very deep purpose here and provide deep meaning for people.
And what has evolved naturally in our world, because we have one of the oldest, most long-standing, continuous weekend dance started by a friend and colleague of ours who wanted to do it with us, Gary Beauregard. He said, "Can I do a Sunday dance through your school?" And we said, "Sure, go for it." And he showed up every Sunday, 52 Sundays a year for how many years did he do it? About 10 years.
Yeah.
And
not quite, but a long time.
About that. And he showed up rain or shine. If Sunday was Christmas Day, he showed up.
Yeah.
And people started to come, and it just exploded, because one of the things we're hungry for is belonging. It's one of the key hungers that we address specifically in our work, the hunger to belong. And the result is that we have a very robust community. Hundreds of people every weekend come and dance together.
It's happening in many different
Yes,
communities around the world. When you dance together, you're intimate. There's just no way to avoid it. You could dance by yourself and you're still intimate. You're intimate with yourself, but surrounded by other people. You're not just dancing in your living room. And the intimacy of that interaction is really building something beautiful and needed.
I consider the movement work that we do very healing on a number of levels, as we've talked about. And therapy is healing. And art study is healing. And I think that people who have professions that are healing professions and combine it with movement, they bring a certain professional training in the healing arts. That being said, I wouldn't call our work therapy. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a trained therapist. And I would say it is extremely healing and therapeutic. It's a byproduct. Mm-hmm. It's not a license or professional training. And what I really love about the work we're doing now is that we have a therapy in motion department that is just for professional therapists to teach them how to use movement work on an individual and collective basis using the skills that they have. And the people who are not licensed therapists don't attend those programs. We don't allow them in. So I feel like the movement is therapeutic, period. And then each teacher has their own level of study, whether it's spiritual study or therapeutic study or literally anatomy and physiological study. Chiropractors, they know a lot more about the body than I do. But we bring the movement in there and it becomes another way of healing. So it is really varied. And it depends also on the teacher and their skill. And we're pretty direct about knowing what you know and not venturing into territory where you're not skilled or you have not done it yourself. So that's why we look for people, when we accept people into the training, to say you can't guide somebody somewhere where you have never been. And so we look for people who have really done their embodiment work. And it is therapeutic. It just is. And it's only getting more so because of the ambient stress and tension that is in the world right now. We used to think Americans were tense when we were all running around naked, 30 years ago. The amount of rising fear and tension and separation that's just literally in the atmosphere now, I think it makes the community dances even more important. Just come and be with people and move the energy that is, building up in our psyche and building up in our body all week. So that's pretty therapeutic too.
And you don't have to be like-minded. Not everybody is like-minded that comes onto that dance floor, even though I think there's a big assumption about that.
Yeah.
No, but we're basically like-bodied. Yeah. We all have limbs, we all have digits. Some of us may have more or less. We all have genitalia, we all have eyes, etc. And so when we dance, I think that what rises to the top, almost like cream at the top of the milk carton, is what are some similarities that we share? There's so much we, they, them, us. There's so much emphasis on our differences, which is important. It's important to feel our uniqueness, but it is also essential to understand our similarities. Where do we find common ground? I said that before, and I really think that it's essential to us as a species. What is our common ground, and what are we doing with it and to it? It helps to dance together. It's very hard to lie when you're dancing. It's very hard to not tell the truth of what is going on in and around ourselves. When we're in motion, it's much easier to do that when we're either by ourselves or sitting. So I think that dance really holds a place now more than ever, and I think it's being recognized. Embodiment work is finally being recognized as not necessarily therapy, but therapeutic for our species at this time.